I was passing the mashed potatoes at Christmas dinner when my mother said the words that would end our relationship forever. "You're the family failure, Jessica. We've all accepted it. Why can't you?" She said it casually. She was commenting on the weather. Loud enough for my sister to hear, loud enough for my brother to nod in agreement, loud enough for their spouses to exchange uncomfortable glances across the table. What none of them knew was that the failure, sitting at their table, had just closed a deal that pushed my company past $5 million in annual revenue, but employed 38 people and ink and red. That venture capital firms were actively trying to invest in my business, with valuations exceeding $15 million. They had no idea. Because I'd stopped telling them about my success years ago. Stopped trying to prove myself, stopped caring what they thought about my choices. But that was about to change. Let me back up and tell you how I got here. My name is Jessica Martinez. I'm 31 years old, and my family has treated me like a disappointment since the moment I chose a different path than the one they'd carefully planned for me. I'm the middle child in a family that values traditional success above everything else. My older sister Caroline is a surgeon. She's 34 years old, chief resident at a major hospital, married to another successful surgeon, living in a massive 4,000 square foot house in the wealthy suburbs. She's everything my parents ever dreamed their children would become. My younger brother Marcus is a corporate lawyer, 29 years old, on the partner track at one of the most prestigious law firms in the city, engaged to a woman from a wealthy and well-connected family, driving a Mercedes that costs more than most people's annual salary. He's the golden boy who can do no wrong. And then there's me, the dropout, the black sheep, the disappointment, the one who threw away her potential and refused to listen to reason. Growing up, my parents had crystal clear expectations for all of us. We would attend elite universities. We would pursue prestigious careers, medical school, law school, or business school at a top-tier institution. We would marry someone equally successful. We would accumulate the traditional markers of achievement that they valued so deeply. Caroline followed their script perfectly. She went to Yale for undergrad, then Johns Hopkins for medical school, then Mass General for her residency. She never once deviated from the path my parents had laid out for her since childhood. Marcus did exactly the same thing. Princeton for undergrad, Harvard Law School, then straight to a big firm where he's been climbing the ladder ever since, making $200,000 a year before he even turned 30. Every single box checked exactly as expected. I was supposed to follow the same my parents' path. My parents enrolled me at Northwestern University, put me on the pre-med track. They'd already planned out my entire future. Medical school at a top institution, then a specialty in either dermatology or radiology. Something lucrative and respectable that would make them proud. I made it through my entire freshman year, but I was miserable every single day. It wasn't that I was bad at the coursework. I actually did pretty well academically. I just hated every moment of it. I couldn't imagine spending the rest of my life doing medicine. It felt wrong. It felt like living someone else's dream instead of my own. Sophomore year, I took an elective course in entrepreneurship, just to fill some credits. It completely changed my life. The professor was a successful entrepreneur who had built and sold 2 different companies. He talked about building businesses from scratch, about solving real problems for real people, about creating value in the world. It was the first time in my entire academic career that I'd felt genuinely excited about what I was learning. I started a small side business, nothing fancy, just basic e-commerce. I'd buy products wholesale and resell them online through various platforms. The first month, I made $3,000 in revenue. The second month, $6,000. By the third month, I was making $10,000. I was completely hooked. This was what I wanted to do with my life. Not medicine, not sitting in lecture halls memorizing anatomy, not following the path my parents had chosen. I wanted to build businesses. I wanted to create something from nothing. I wanted to take risks and see what I could accomplish on my own terms. Midway through my sophomore year, I made the decision. I dropped out of Northwestern. I told my parents I was leaving school to focus on building my business full-time. The response was absolutely catastrophic. My mother cried. She actually cried real tears. "You're throwing your entire life away. Do you understand that? You'll never succeed without a college degree. Never. This is the biggest mistake you'll ever make." My father was furious, in a way I'd never seen before. "We're not paying another single cent for this nonsense. If you drop out of school, you're completely on your own. Completely. Don't expect any help from us." My sister Caroline looked at me with such pity. "Jess, you're making a huge mistake. A massive mistake. Come back to school. Finish your degree. You can always do entrepreneurship as a hobby after you have a real career to fall back on." My brother Marcus was characteristically blunt. "You're going to regret this decision for the rest of your life. You'll see." But I dropped out anyway. I moved into a tiny studio apartment in a questionable neighborhood. I lived on ramen noodles and pure determination. I worked 18-hour days, 7 days a week, building my business from absolutely nothing. That first year after dropping out was brutally difficult. I made $48,000 in total revenue. It barely covered my business expenses. I was living on maybe $12,000 personally. I survived, but just barely. At Thanksgiving dinner that year, my family's questions were predictable. "So, Jessica, how's your little business going? Have you actually made any money yet?" "I'm building it. These things take time." "Time and a college degree. That's what real success takes. You're learning that the hard way now." Year 2 was significantly better. I hit $93,000 in revenue. I started making actual profit for the first time. I hired my very first employee. I moved to a slightly bigger apartment in a marginally better neighborhood. At Christmas dinner, the questions continued. "Are you thinking about going back to school yet? It's not too late, you know. You're only 23 years old." "I don't want to go back to school. My business is actually growing." "Growing what exactly? You can't build a real company without proper credentials, without a degree. You're just playing entrepreneur. It's not the same thing." Playing. That word stung more than anything else they said. Because I was working harder than I'd ever worked in my entire life. Working harder than Caroline when she was studying for her medical board exams. Working harder than Marcus when he was preparing for the bar exam. But they couldn't see it. They absolutely refused to see it. Year 3, I hit $212,000 in revenue. A real milestone. I hired 3 more employees. I moved my operation into a real office space instead of working from my cramped apartment. I started getting attention from local business publications in our market. At a family dinner that year, "So you're still doing your little online thing?" "It's not little anymore. I have 4 full-time employees now. We're growing rapidly. 4 employees." My father actually laughed. Not cruelly, but dismissively. "Caroline manages an entire team of medical residents. Marcus works with Fortune 500 clients on multi-million-dollar deals. That's real responsibility. 4 employees selling products online isn't the same thing at all." That's when I stopped sharing details with them. I stopped trying to make them understand what I was building. I just showed up to family events when required. I answered their questions as vaguely as possible. I let them believe whatever narrative they wanted to believe about my life. Year 4, I made a major pivot in the business. I stopped doing pure e-commerce reselling. Instead, I started developing my own product line, private label goods in the home organization space. It meant much higher profit margins, better brand control, way more scalability potential. My revenue jumped dramatically to $420,000. I hired 8 more employees. We moved to a much bigger office space. We started shipping our products nationally instead of just regionally. That was also the year Caroline got married. My parents threw her an absolutely massive wedding. They spent $60,000 on it. The toast my father gave at the reception? I'm so incredibly proud of the woman you've become. A surgeon who saves lives every single day, building a beautiful family. You're everything we could have ever hoped for in a daughter. They also gave Caroline and her new husband $50,000 as a wedding gift to help with your down payment on the house. Nobody mentioned my business at the wedding. Nobody asked how things were going. I was just there, in the background. The dropout daughter. The one who'd made the wrong choice and was paying the price. Year 5, I scaled as aggressively as I possibly could. I invested every single dollar of profit back into inventory, marketing, and hiring talented people. My revenue hit $940,000. I hired 12 more people. I brought on a chief operating officer who'd worked at a much larger company. At Thanksgiving dinner, "Jessica, are you dating anyone seriously? You're 27 years old now. You really should be thinking about settling down and starting a family." I'm focused on building my business right now. And that's exactly the problem. My mother's voice was gentle but absolutely firm. You're so focused on this business thing that you're completely missing out on real life. Real career, real family, real stability. Those are the things that actually matter in life. My business is my real career. It's a hobby that's gone on way too long. You really should be thinking about going back to school, getting proper credentials, building something real and sustainable. Something real. As if the 23 people whose livelihoods depended on my company weren't real. As if the nearly $1 million in annual revenue wasn't real enough. That was also the year Marcus got engaged. My parents threw an elaborate engagement party at an expensive venue. They invited 80 people. My father's toast? "I couldn't possibly be prouder of the man you've become. So successful, so responsible, building such a bright future with such a wonderful woman." They gave Marcus and his fiancée $30,000. For the wedding, "Make it as special as you both deserve." I sat at a table in the very back of the room. I watched my family celebrate the golden children. I felt completely invisible. Like I didn't even exist to them. Year 6 was when absolutely everything exploded in the best possible way. We hit product market fit, in a way I hadn't even dared to dream about. Our home organization products started going viral on social media platforms. Influencers discovered us organically. Our sales went completely exponential. We did $2.4 million in revenue that year. I had to hire 20 more people just to keep up with the explosive demand. We moved to an even bigger office and warehouse space. I started getting calls from venture capital investors who wanted to get involved in what we were building. I didn't tell my family a single word about any of it. What was the point anymore? At Christmas dinner, "You're still running your online store, right, Jess?" "Yeah, still doing that." "Well, at least you're persistent. I suppose that's something positive we can say." Persistent. Like I was stubbornly clinging to a failing venture instead of building something genuinely substantial and valuable. Year 7, this past year, we did $5.2 million in revenue. We now have 54 employees. I was featured in the Forbes 30 Under 30 list for social impact entrepreneurs. I was featured in Inc. magazine's annual list of the fastest-growing private companies in America. Venture capital firms were actively courting me, with term sheets offering valuations north of $15 million for my company. I was offered $8 million cash for my entire company back in October. I turned it down without hesitation because I knew we'd be worth at least 3 times that amount within the next 2 years. My mother still introduced me to people as Jessica, the one who dropped out of college to do her online thing. Which brings us to Christmas dinner 3 weeks ago. The dinner where my mother called me the family failure in front of everyone. We were all gathered at my parents' house. The entire family. Caroline and her surgeon husband, Marcus and his lawyer fiancé, all of us sitting around the massive dining table that my mother had spent 2 full days preparing for this dinner. The conversation followed the exact same pattern it had followed for years. My father asking Caroline detailed questions about her most interesting medical cases, asking Marcus about his biggest clients and most important deals. Everyone genuinely impressed by their various accomplishments and successes, then inevitably turning their attention to me. "And Jessica, how's your little business doing these days?" "It's going well." "Still selling those products online?" "Yeah, still doing that." "Must be really nice having such flexible work. Working from home whenever you want, setting your own schedule. That freedom must be enjoyable." I didn't work from home. I was at my office a minimum of 60 hours every single week. But I didn't bother correcting him anymore. What was the point? That's when Marcus decided to bring up my age. "Jess is 31 years old now. Don't you think it's finally time to get serious about your actual future?" "My business is my future." "Come on, Jess. Be realistic for once. You've played entrepreneur for almost 10 full years now. That's a long time. But you really need to start thinking long term. What's going to happen when this whole online thing doesn't work anymore? When the market inevitably shifts? When you're 40 years old with no college degree, no real career, no retirement savings?" "I actually do have retirement savings." "How much, though? Realistically, how much actually saved?" I could have told him the truth right then. I could have said that between the equity value in my company and my personal savings and investments, my total net worth was somewhere around $4 million. I could have explained that I paid myself $350,000 per year in combined salary and profit distributions. But I didn't say any of that, because I knew they simply wouldn't believe me anyway. That's when my mother decided to join the conversation. "Sweetheart, we're just worried about you. You're not getting any younger. Caroline has her incredible medical career and her beautiful family. Marcus is building an amazing legal career and about to start his own family. And well, you're still just doing your online thing." "My online thing is actually doing perfectly fine. But for how much longer, though? You need real stability, a real job with a real company, real benefits, a proper retirement account, not this unpredictable business thing you've been doing." "I actually have all of those things." She wasn't listening to me at all. "You're the family failure, Jessica. We've all accepted that reality. Why can't you just accept it too?" The entire table went completely silent. Caroline looked genuinely uncomfortable. Marcus looked away and focused intently on his plate. My father nodded slightly, as if my mother had just said something perfectly reasonable. I very carefully put down my fork. "The family failure. I don't mean that in a cruel way, sweetheart. Really, I don't. I just mean that you chose a very different path, a very unstable and risky path, and it simply didn't work out the way you hoped it would. And that's perfectly okay. We still love you very much. We just wish you had been more practical about your choices." "You genuinely think my business didn't work out?" "Well, sweetie, you're clearly not where your siblings are in life. You're not successful in the same way that they're successful. And that's perfectly fine. Not everyone can be a Caroline or a Marcus. We've all accepted that fact. You really should accept it too." Something broke inside me in that moment. Not dramatically or loudly, very quietly, a calm, settling feeling. A decision being made in real time. I pulled out my phone from my pocket. I opened up my email app. I found the Forbes article that had been published back in September. I slid my phone across the polished dining table directly to my mother. "Read that article." She looked genuinely confused. She picked up my phone carefully. She started reading. Her eyes went progressively wider and wider. "What is this exactly?" "That's me. Featured in Forbes 30 Under 30, Social Impact Entrepreneurs category. Read the specific part about annual revenue." She continued reading. Her mouth literally fell open slightly. This article says your company did $5 million in revenue last year? 5.2 million, actually. And this current year, we're on track to hit approximately 7 million. My father reached across the table for my phone. He read the article himself. His expression completely changed. I don't understand. This is really your company? That's my company. Harmony Home Solutions. We currently employ 54 full-time people. We ship products nationally to all 50 states. We've been approached by multiple venture capital investors, with company valuations exceeding $15 million. Caroline was now staring directly at me, with her mouth open. You employ 54 people? Yes. We have a large warehouse facility, a proper office space, a complete operations team. I have a chief operating officer, a chief financial officer, a head of marketing, a head of sales. We're a legitimate, real company. Marcus finally found his voice. Why on earth didn't you tell us any of this? I tried to tell you, for years and years. Every single time I mentioned any growth, you dismissed it as a cute hobby. Every single time I mentioned hiring employees, you compared it unfavorably to Caroline's medical residence. Every single time I tried to share anything, you found some way to diminish it or dismiss it completely. But $5 million should have been completely obvious to all of you years ago, if any of you had bothered to pay attention. I've been driving a Tesla for the past 2 years. I bought a condo in downtown for $700,000, cash, full payment. Did absolutely none of you even wonder how I was possibly affording that lifestyle? My mother looked genuinely shocked. You bought your condo with cash? Yes, all cash. Because I'm absolutely not the failure you all think I am. I'm not playing entrepreneur. I built a legitimate multi-million-dollar company completely from scratch, with zero help from any of you, while every single one of you was calling it a meaningless hobby. My father was still holding my phone, still reading through the article carefully. This talks about social impact initiatives, sustainable products, environmental responsibility programs. We manufacture eco-friendly home organization products. We're a certified B Corporation. We donate a percentage of our profits to environmental causes. We pay our employees well above market rate. We offer full, comprehensive benefits. We have unlimited paid time off. We're building a company that actually matters and makes a positive difference. Caroline's husband spoke up for the first time all evening. He'd been completely silent throughout dinner. I've actually heard of Harmony Home Solutions before. One of my colleagues at the hospital uses your products exclusively. She absolutely raves about them constantly. We make good products. We have excellent reviews from customers. We have strong retention rates. We're genuinely doing well. The silence at the table was absolutely heavy and oppressive. My entire family was processing, recalculating everything, finally understanding that their complete narrative about me had been totally and utterly wrong. My mother's voice came out very small and quiet. Why didn't you make us understand before now? I tried, repeatedly, for years. You simply weren't interested in listening. You had already decided exactly who I was. The dropout, the failure, the disappointment. Nothing I said could possibly change that narrative you'd created. But if we had known the actual numbers, if you'd known I was making millions, then you would have respected me. But you should have respected me when I was making 90,000. You should have respected me when I was barely making 40,000. You should have respected me when I was literally just surviving, but still building something meaningful. That's when I actually needed your support and belief. Not now, when it's already obvious to everyone. My father carefully set down my phone on the table. Jessica, I honestly don't know what to say to you. You don't have to say anything at all. I stopped needing your validation many years ago. I just came here tonight to have Christmas dinner with my family. I genuinely wasn't planning on telling you any of this information, but then Mom called me the family failure. And I suddenly realized that I don't want to sit here anymore, pretending to be what you think I am. Marcus spoke very quietly. We were completely wrong about you. Yes, you absolutely were. For almost an entire decade, while I was building something genuinely real and meaningful, all of you were treating me like a delusional child playing business, like I had made some terrible mistake and was simply too stubborn to admit it. We're truly sorry. Are you sorry that I'm not actually a failure? Or are you sorry that you totally misjudged me? Because those are two very different things. Nobody had any answer to that question. I stood up from the table. I'm going to leave now. Thank you for dinner. My mother reached desperately for my hand. Jessica, please don't leave like this. Please stay. Let's talk about this situation properly. There's absolutely nothing to talk about. You've made your opinion of me abundantly clear for an entire decade. The fact that you happen to be completely wrong doesn't change any of that. But we want to know about your business now. We want to understand what you've built. Now. You want to know now. Because a Forbes article validated me. Because the dollar amount is finally impressive enough to matter to you. You didn't want to know when it was 48,000. You didn't want to know when it was 200,000. You didn't want to know when it was just me, working 18-hour days, trying to survive. I picked up my coat from the back of my chair. I'll see you all around sometime. I walked out the front door. I got into my Tesla. I drove back to my condominium, the $700,000 condo that they'd never once asked me about or wondered how I could possibly afford. That was exactly 3 weeks ago. My phone has been absolutely blowing up ever since. My mother calls me every single day. My father has been sending me long, detailed emails. Caroline keeps texting apologies. Marcus has tried multiple times to set up coffee meetings. They all want to know about my business now. They want to hear all the details. They want to be proud of me finally. What feels completely empty to me. Totally hollow. They're proud of successful Jessica. They absolutely were not proud of struggling Jessica. They're impressed by $5 million in revenue. They were not impressed by perseverance and vision and determination when it actually mattered. My chief operating officer asked me about the situation last week. So your family finally knows everything now? Yeah, they know. How are you feeling about all of it? Honestly, I genuinely don't know. Part of me wanted this exact moment for years and years. Wanted them to finally see what I'd actually built. Wanted their validation so badly. But now that they actually know everything, I've realized I don't actually care anymore. I stopped needing their approval somewhere around year 4. That's probably healthy. Is it though? Or is it just incredibly sad? Maybe both. You built something absolutely extraordinary, without any support from the people who should have supported you the most. That's definitely sad. But you did it anyway, despite them. That's definitely healthy. She was completely right. I had built something genuinely extraordinary. 54 employees who depend on me and trust me. $7 million in projected revenue for this year. Products in thousands and thousands of homes across the country. A company with real values and real impact in the world. And I did all of it while my family was calling it a meaningless hobby. While they were calling me a failure. While they were calling my work playing entrepreneur. Just last week, I received another acquisition offer. $12 million. All cash. Completely life-changing money by any standard. I'm seriously considering accepting it. Not because I want to stop working or building things, but because I'm genuinely thinking about what might come next in my life. Maybe starting another company in a different space. Maybe investing in other entrepreneurs who remind me of myself 10 years ago. Maybe teaching entrepreneurship at business schools and helping the next generation. I mentioned the acquisition offer to my mother during one of her now daily phone calls. I might sell the company. Someone just offered me $12 million. $12 million? Her voice sounded genuinely faint. For your company? Yes. 12 million. All cash. That's significantly more than your father made when he sold his business. I know that. Long silence on the phone. Then, I'm so incredibly sorry, Jessica, for absolutely everything we said to you, everything we thought about you. We were completely and totally wrong. Yes, you were. Can we somehow make this right? Can we possibly start over? I honestly don't know, Mom. You called me the family failure just 3 weeks ago. You don't undo an entire decade of that kind of treatment overnight. But we desperately want to try. We want to know you. We want to know your business. We want to be part of your life. You could have been part of my life this entire time. You actively chose not to be, because we didn't understand what you were building. Because you didn't try to understand. That's the crucial difference. You saw that I dropped out of college, and you immediately decided I was a failure. You never asked what I was actually building. You never cared about the details. You never believed I could possibly succeed. You just patiently waited for me to fail, so you could say you were right all along. She was crying on the phone. I could clearly hear it. That's not true. It is absolutely true, and you know it. The only reason you care at all now is because the number is too big to ignore anymore. Because Forbes and Inc. magazine validated me externally. Because $12 million proves success in a way you can't dismiss. Not because you looked at me 10 years ago and thought, my daughter is doing something genuinely brave, and I should support her no matter what. What do you want from us? Nothing at all. That's the entire point. I don't need anything from you anymore. I built this without you. I succeeded without you. I don't need your validation, or your pride, or your support. I already have everything I need. My relationship with my family is extremely complicated now. They're trying hard, asking questions, showing interest in my work, but I keep them at a significant arm's length. The trust is completely gone. The fundamental belief that they have my best interests at heart is gone. Maybe we'll eventually rebuild something resembling a relationship. Maybe we won't. I'm genuinely okay with either outcome, because I learned something absolutely crucial through all of this. You simply cannot build your life while waiting for validation from people who have already decided you're a failure. You have to build it anyway, for yourself, because you believe in what you're doing. My mother called me the family failure at Christmas dinner. She said it casually, like it was a completely settled fact that we should all just accept and move on from. 3 weeks later, I showed them the most healthy, really interested life. My $5 million business. The 54 employees. The Forbes feature. The $12 million acquisition offers. And you know what? It felt significantly less satisfying than I'd imagined it would for all those years. Because their validation came far too late. Because their pride was entirely conditional. Because they only finally saw me when the numbers became too big to possibly ignore. But here's what I learned through all of this. Their opinion never actually mattered. Their validation was never necessary for my success. I built something genuinely extraordinary, while they dismissed it as a hobby, while they pitied me, while they patiently waited for me to fail so they could feel vindicated. And I succeeded anyway. Completely. Undeniably. That's the real victory. Not proving them wrong, just succeeding so thoroughly and completely that their wrong opinion became totally irrelevant to my life. My family finally sees me now. They finally respect what I've built. They finally understand that I'm not a failure. But I had already stopped needing them to see it years ago. I had already validated myself, and that's worth infinitely more than any amount of late recognition could ever possibly be.